الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وبعد. فقد قال جل وعلا في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. وقال تعالى: وأمر أهلك بالصلاة واصطبر عليها لا نسألك رزقا نحن نرزقك والعاقبة للتقوى. صدق الله العظيم. Honorable scholars, respected brothers, elders, mothers and sisters, our topic of discussion tonight is one of paramount importance, something which is very vital and integral in the life of every human, and in particular in the life of Muslims, and that is building bridges between parents and children. Ask any parent in today's world, the daunting task of raising children has brought about nightmares in the lives of many people. The son wrote a telegram to his dad, brief message: no man, no fun, your son. No man, no fun, your son. The dad was equally smart. Too bad, too sad, your dad. No man, no fun, your son. Too bad, too sad, your dad. On a more serious note, dad returns home. The little boy runs up to his father. Dad, if you don't mind me asking you, and I'm not intruding, how much do you earn an hour? I earn $20 an hour, my son. Okay, thank you. And the dad backs him off and says, move on. What you want to know how much I earn? Go do your own things. Anyway, he goes away, does his homework, attends to his other chores. Time to hop into bed, he hops in. The dad has a flush of guilt. My son asked me, I was tired, I was exhausted, I had a long day. I made him a victim of my fatigue. So the dad goes to his son, pets him. I'm so sorry, my son. You were engaging me, you were asking me how much I earn. And I think you have the right of asking me. I'm so sorry, I had a busy day. And I think I didn't give you the right time, and I didn't afford you the correct moments. But speak to me. He said, yeah, Dad, I was just wondering how much you earn. And you said you earn $20. And while saying this here, a $10 note slipped out of the pillow. So the dad was rather confused and said, my son, what is all this about? He said, Dad, I know your shop and your money means the world to you. I don't know when last I had dinner and supper with you. I have started up saving money to buy an hour from you. I have saved up money and I have $10, and I'm hoping to reach the $20 mark so that I can come to you, give you your money in advance, because otherwise you will not come home early and sit down and have dinner with us. And I'm afraid that has become a harsh reality. For many people, the priorities have been lost. I swear by Allah, if you have obedient children with a good understanding, you're a wealthy man even if you live in a hut. And if you lack understanding and communication, then you are a pauper even if you live in a palace. And for that, there's a lot that has to be done, both from parents and children. When Zayd radiallahu anhu was adopted by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had announced, as of today, Zayd is my adopted son. Subsequent to that, the verses were revealed where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, مَا جَعَلَ أَدْعِيَاءَكُمْ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ ذَلِكُمْ قَوْلُكُمْ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَقُولُ الْحَقَّ وَهُوَ يَهْدِي السَّبِيلِ. That Allah has not made your adopted children your actual children. Your biological son remains your biological son. Anyway, the parents of Zayd were rather restless to locate their son. He had left home, he had eloped, he had moved on. So they tried to trace down. It was obviously not internet where you can track him down, on a website or through surveillance or cameras. It was the days in Makkah Mukarramah. And the father sang the very famous couplets, بكيت على زيد ولم أدر ما فعل أحي فيرجى أم أتى دونه الأجل فوالله ما أدري وإني لسائل أغالك بعدي السهل أم غالك الجبل تذكرنيه الشمس عند طلوعها وتعرض ذكراه إذا غربها أفل وإن هبت الأرواح هيجن ذكره فيا طول ما حزني عليه ويا وجل. That as long as the sun will rise and the birds will chirp, my crave and my yearning for you will keep me restless, O Zayd. Life will never be the same without you. I will run my horses in the east and the west in the search of you, O my son. I am restless without you. My life is not the same. Finally, someone said, your son is in the custody of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. All excited and elated, overwhelmed that finally he has located his son. He comes to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and with him he brings his brother, Zayd's uncle. And he says, "Oh Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I will offer you any money you want. Any money you want as ransom to release my son, we want him." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "I will not take a dime in lieu of his freedom. You want him, you can have him. But one thing I will not do is, I will not send him against his wish. If he is ready to come, by all means, you the father and you have the right." The parents sat down, the father, the uncle, Zayd radiallahu anhu is sitting there. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Zayd, can you identify these two gentlemen?" He said, "Yes, indeed, that's my uncle and that is my biological father." They said, "Zayd, we have come to take you and free you from the clutches of slavery." Zayd radiallahu anhu, with a tear in his eye and a crack in his voice, said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Ma ana billadhi akhtaru alayka ahadan ya Rasulullah, anta al-abu wa anta al-ammu." O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I will never give preference and priority to anyone over you. That is individually my father, and that is individually my uncle. But in your personality, I see a fatherly figure and I see an uncle. Why should I go for them individually when you are a wholesome package for me? Now that's my message that I am deducing from this incident. If I become the confidant of my son, he won't have to confide with a strange girl. If I become the companion of my son, he won't have to roam the net to look for an accomplice. If I become the friend of my son, and I stand and I grow with him, I mature and I evolve with him, reflect for a moment, when we pray and we supplicate to Allah, we say, "Rabbi irhamhuma kama rabbayani saghira." Oh my Allah, have mercy on my parents as they have nurtured me when I was a child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used the word Rabb, which makes us understand the daunting responsibility that parents have to shoulder in the nurturing and the raising of their children. Rabba yarubbu rabban. Dissect it in the Arabic language. And you will appreciate the profoundness of the sentiments of this word. The very word we use for Allah, obviously we do not apply the same connotations, but suffice to say that Allah has used the same term, which means my duty is I have to grow with my child stage by stage. So what did Zayd radiallahu anhu say? You are a wholesome package for me, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And I have seen in you everything that I need. I don't have to look for it individually. I'm afraid we have not been there for our children. And today it has become an electronic world. There is an electronic father, there is an electronic mother, there are electronic siblings, it's gadgets, it's devices, it's electronic things which we have handed them over to, and we have relinquished our responsibility, the consequences of which the entire world is seeing. I want to speak to the youth as well in terms of their obligation to their parents. And then I want to speak about some healthy dialogue, the need of dialogue between parent and child. This is vital, this is integral. How often a situation, a father and son cannot speak. Either they communicating via the wife or the mother, or they communicating via the younger brother, or many a times in today's modern world, the father drops his son an email. My word, are you living in different countries? No, we share a common roof. But it's just that he has his own mood swings and I have my own mood swings. So yeah, we chat more online than physically. Understand the bond that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept. That is why the strongest bond is between a nursing mother and her nursing child. A suckling mother and her suckling child. And we often say, you can express milk into a bottle, but you can never express the compassion of a mother into a bottle. When you have a servant or a nanny to put that bottle, you appease your ego. You satisfy your consciousness by saying it is the mother's milk. But remember, you have expressed milk. You can never express that affection, that love, that bonding. As the Quran says, وَعَلَى الْوَالِدَاتِ يُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَن يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَ. And it is upon the parents, it is upon the parents, it's upon the mother that she nurses her child, she suckles her child for this duration of 2 years. Anyway, when Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam was separated from his parents because of the evil intentions of his siblings, and a good period had lapsed. Some narrations suggest 40 years, other narrations suggest 80 years. This is in the footnotes of Jalalain. And finally it surfaced that the king of Egypt was the son of Yaqub alayhi salam. And the brothers were going forth and coming back, bringing corn and grain due to the drought and famine. Can those brothers that are coming in just swiftly make their way, and can other brothers just keep focused and attentive so that we don't compromise the essence of the talk? So brothers that are coming in can swiftly make their way to the arrangements that have been laid out for the brothers, and others can kindly keep focused. These are important aspects that we need to understand. Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam told his sons, when you go back to the king, who is my son Yusuf, find out how he's doing and let me know about his well-being. So they return and they say, Dad, he's in good spirit, he's a king, he's a ruler, he's affluent, he's living a soft life. He said, my sons, I haven't asked you about his financial condition. What is the condition of the iman of my son? I'm saying many of you, I've just flew in from London and I met a host of expatriates, people from Sri Lanka there, either studying or residing. You might be communicating with your son. What is your first point of communication? Is it his academic studies? Or is it the vital question, have you prayed your prayers today? Are you behaving well? Are you upholding Islamic values and morals? Are you living by the ethics that we have impressed upon you? By the way, how's your academic studies going? How's your campus life going? How's your studies Is things okay with your colleagues? Is everything fine at home? Obviously, those are questions you have to ask, and I cannot refute it. When Sayyidina Ibrahim leaves his family, his wife and his children in a barren land, which the Quran says, رَبَّنَا إِنِّي أَسْكَنْتُ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي بِوَادٍ غَيْرِ ذِي زَرْعٍ عِنْدَ بَيْتِكَ الْمُحَرَّمِ رَبَّنَا لِيُقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِنَ النَّاسِ. He leaves them in a barren land. There's no food and provisions. There's no ability from the earth to grow anything. Yet when he makes his first dua, he says, "Oh my Lord, I've left my wife and children. Make them obedient to you and those who establish prayers." Thereafter he said, وَارْزُقُهُم مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَشْكُرُونَ. And obviously they have to live and they need sustenance and provision. I beg you, oh my Lord, provide for them wholesome sustenance. What were the priorities? And what have become our priorities? So he said, "Oh my son, I am not questioning about the financial well-being of my son, but rather my question is, what is the iman of my son Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam?" Every parent should do some soul searching and do some serious introspection in terms of, I often say, and I read this in an English book, they say, those who come after you will be better than you or worse than you because of you. Those are deep words. Let them sink in the recesses of your heart. Those who come after you, that is your children, your descendants, your progeny, they will be better than you or worse than you because of you. Reflect over the legacy you leave in. That is what they're going to inherit. Let's spin the focus and put the spotlight on our youth and say to them, have you understood the obligation of your parents? Have you taken their prayers? Or have you incurred their curse? I'm afraid many parents are tossing with pain in this time and era. Many parents are crying out with pain due to the trauma inflicted upon them by the children. And I focus on the youth and I say to you, have you forgotten the tale of Jurayj? Have you forgotten the tale of Jurayj? Or have you never bothered reading about Jurayj? The hadith of Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَمْ يَتَكَلَّمْ فِي الْمَهْدِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثَةً. لَمْ يَتَكَلَّمْ فِي الْمَهْدِ إِلَّا ثَلَاثَةً. There were 3 babies that spoke in their infancy. They spoke while they were being suckled miraculously. And one amongst them was the companion of Jurayj. It appears in the authentic ahadith. Jurayj was a boy in the previous nations. He was a very pious, Allah-conscious person. He had built his monastery in which he used to worship his Allah. فَاتَّخَذَ صَوْمَعَةً. And in that he used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day his mom called him and she had some work to do. So his mom came to him and he said, Jurayj, and he was engaged in salah. Now to start off, that itself, may Allah make that a reality, that when I call my son, I realize in salah. What a pleasant sight. Today, unfortunately, that also doesn't happen. Ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma said, لَيْسَ شَيْءٌ أَقَرَّ لِعَيْنِ الْمُؤْمِنِ مِنْ أَنْ يَرَى زَوْجَتَهُ وَأَوْلَادَهُ مُطِيعِينَ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. There can be nothing more soothing to the eye of a believer or more comforting to the heart of a believer than to walk into your house and find your spouse reading Quran and your son on the prayer mat. May Allah make that a reality versus the painful, appalling sight where you walk in the house, one on pornography, the other one with earphones, and the third one on the net. These homes have become devoid of goodness. Oh my Lord, transform our homes. Jurayj's mother calls out to him, Ya Jurayj. So he's in prayer. And in his salah he debates. He said, Ijtama'a, he's applying his mind. He obviously did not articulate it. اجتمع علي إجابة أمي وإتمام صلاتي فوفقني لأفضلهما. In his mind he's debating, I've got my prayer and I've got my mom, what do I do? And he wasn't certain, so he continued with the prayer. The mom called out once, the mom called out twice, unaware that the son is praying, and then she went away. The next day the mother comes back again, and it coincides with the very moment that the son is praying. I'm saying to you, my young boy, this boy did not respond to the call of his mother, and he did not indulge in any crime. He was busy praying to Allah. You have a chip on your shoulder, and you have an attitude and an arrogant attitude, and you refuse to obey your mother simply because you're online chatting with a strange girl, or you got some other issues to do, and then you moan and groan and frown and object on your mother. One person came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "O Prophet of Allah, I have tried my level best to do for my parents everything that they have done for me. Have I now balanced it out fair?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave such a profound answer. He said, فَإِنَّهُمَا كَانَا يَفْعَلَانِ ذَلِكَ وَيُرِيدَانِ بَقَاءَكَ وَأَنْتَ تَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ وَتُرِيدُ مَوْتَهُمَا. There is a world of difference. Perhaps you took your mom around as long as she carried you. Perhaps you spent on your dad as much as he spent on you. But you know what's the difference? She did it and she cherished it. You do it and you dread it. Let me simplify it and give you the exact words of Nabi alayhi salam. The hadith says, your mom stayed up. She nursed you. And she prayed, may Allah prolong your life. You got sick, she gave up her sleep. And she was worried that you must live and recover. Your mum is ill, you seen to her, but you're hoping she dies. فَإِنَّهُمَا كَانَا يَفْعَلَانِ ذَلِكَ وَيُرِيدَانِ بَقَاءَكَ وَأَنْتَ تَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ وَتُرِيدُ مَوْتَهُمَا. There is a world of difference. Perhaps you've spent the equal time, but their vision, their motivation was much greater. The mom comes the second day. Jurayj, again he's praying. Again the mom calls out once, twice. No reply, the mom goes away. She's old, she's aged. She calls out in her weak, in her frail voice. If the young boy of today has the vision and integrity, he will respond and understand. If not, I'm afraid the consequences that will face you in this world are grave. There are two crimes. The Prophet ﷺ says, in addition to the punishment in akhirah, Allah starts it in this world. One is oppression and one is disobedience to your parents. The consequences do not commence in akhirah, they commence in this world. We're discussing the topic of building bridges between parent and children. I focused on the parents, I'm focusing on the youth, and I'm going to bring it to a neutral discussion. The mom goes away. The Prophet ﷺ says, لو كان جريج فقيها لعلم أن إجابة أمه أولى من عبادة ربه. If this boy Jurayj had the sciences of Islam, and in addition to his piety, he was well versed with Islamic jurisprudence, then he would have known better that complying to his mother was more important than completing his optional prayer. But tragically, he didn't have the knowledge. He didn't have the knowledge. The third day, the mom comes. Jurayj, my son Jurayj. Again, the son doesn't respond. Not because I'm harping, I'm reminding you, young boy. I'm reminding you, young boy. He was not online, he was not chatting, he was not on a phone, he was not speaking, he was not watching a sport. He was engaged in prayer. No response. The mother as a human was moved to sadness. And in a fit of sadness, in a fit of anger, momentarily she lost her tongue. And she uttered things that never gets rejected in the court of Allah. It never gets rejected. To you, she's mumbling. To Allah, those are profound proclamations. To you, it's inaudible. I cannot hear what my mum is saying. But let me tell you, her tears alone will make decisions. By Allah, I'm standing here because of the du'as of my mother. I have said it in many countries across the world. And I say it again, I have absolutely nothing in my own life. Nay, I would say if sins have a odor, my sins would have killed you because of the bad smell it has. So wicked am I. And that's not, traditional humility. But it is the prayers of my mum. And she often cries out. And she often prays. And I believe and I say with conviction it is her prayers that I'm here. May Allah bless her and preserve her and reward her. The mum slipped out. And she said, Allahumma inna hadha jurayjan ibni wa inni kallamtuhu fa aba an yukallimani. Allahumma la tumithu hatta turiyahu wujuh al-mumisat. Oh Allah, this is my son Jurayj. The first day I came and I called him, he refused me. He didn't respond. My Allah, the second day as a mum I called out, he did not respond. My Allah, as the third day I called out, he did not respond. I am hurt, I am offended. My heart is full of pain and grief. Allah, let him not die till he repeatedly sees the wicked sight of immoral prostitute woman. Sheikh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda rahimahullah, a great scholar of recent time, has written the full incident in his kitab, Ar-Rasul al-Muallim wa Asalibuhu fi Ta'aleem. I'm giving you the full reference. It's a brilliant read. It's in Arabic. Oh Allah, I spoke to him once, twice. I'm hurt, my Rabb. I'm hurt. I'm feeling sad. Let him not die till he doesn't see the despicable sight of immoral, obscene women who hand themselves over to others. Time moved on. But that will come back to you, my brother. It will haunt you in your life. You will go to her grave and shed tears of blood. If she's alive, go kiss her feet tonight. If she's alive, go kiss her feet tonight. Delay not a second, my young brother. Time moved on. Life continued. His mum passed away. There was a shepherd. There was a discussion amongst the people of Bani Israel where Jurayj lived. فَتَذَاكَرَ بَنُو إِسْرَائِيلَ جُرَيْجًا وَعِبَادَتَهُ. People said, you know what? Who can mislead this Jurayj? He is so pious. So there was one woman in the locality who was very attractive, very beautiful, very seductive. كانت امرأة بغي يتمثل بحسنها. She said, إن شئتم لأفتننها لكم. If you want, I will go and mislead him and I will tempt him. So this woman came and presented herself. But Jurayj was a very, very pious man. He didn't lift his glance. He didn't make any lustful advancement. He modestly walked away. She tried to persuade him from different angles, but this man did not move in any way. This was the level of piety that he had. Anyway, this woman then gave access to another shepherd that used to visit the same monastery. And he then slept with her and she conceived. When she conceived, people asked her, who's the father of this child? She said, that very pious Jurayj, he's the father. The child was then born as well. Who's the father? Jurayj. Now, unfortunately, we know the world in which we live, people react without probing and investigating. Allegations alleged and that conclusions are made. Before we used to hear innocent until proven guilty. Now it's guilty until proven innocent. You walk around as a Muslim, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. Have you reversed the law for Muslims? But all along I heard innocent until proven guilty. Suddenly I am guilty because I'm a Muslim. وَمَا نَقَمُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So people came and demolished his monastery. And they said, we're going to disgrace him and expose him in public. They then tied his face, put him on the back of a mule and walked him through different streets. The narration is there. And as they were going through different streets, they came to the very street in which the immoral women were also living. Oh my word, years have lapsed, decades have passed, but here haunts you the curse of your mum. Here it comes back hitting you in your eyes. So as they walk in the street, there is a tear, there is a smile, there is a frown, there is contradicting emotions manifesting on the face of Jurayj. So people asked him, you know, we went through all the streets, you were very calm and composed, relaxed and focused, but when we came here, somehow we read your facial expressions, your body language is very different. فَلَمَّا مَرُّوا بِهِ نَحْوَ بَيْتِ الزَّوَانِ. He said, you know what can I tell you? My mom has long gone. But there's a tale that had happened to me when I was a young boy. And what my mom had said, that let him not die till he doesn't have to see, witness with his naked eye, pass by the area and the street where immoral women will be there. Today my mom has gone, but the curse of my mother stares at me in my eyes. Yes, my young brother, it's time you focus. Al-Adab al-Mufrad. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi makes mention the narration in Al-Adab al-Mufrad. A person came to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. He said, Inni khatabtu imra'atan. I proposed to a girl. فَأَبَتْ أَن تَنْكِحَنِي. She refused to marry me. فَخَطَبَهَا غَيْرِي. So someone else proposed to her. And she accepted the proposal. فَغِرْتُ عَلَيْهَا فَقَبَّلْتُهَا. And I became jealous. And I became offended. And I couldn't imagine another man having this woman. And I lost myself for the moment and I fell upon her lustfully. And I regret what I have done. I did not perpetrate the crime of zina, but I advanced towards her. هَلْ لِي مِن تَوْبَةٍ. Is there anything I can do to atone for my mistake? Is there anything I can do to compensate for my error? Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma looked at him and said, هَلْ لَكَ مِنْ أُمٍّ. Do you have a mother? He said, no, my mom is late. Is your dad alive? He said, yes. He says, okay, tub ila Allahi azza wa jal wa taqarrab ilayhi mastata'ta. Repent to Allah and see how best you can ask Allah to forgive you. He said it and he went away. One of the people that was sitting there said, Ibn Abbas, if you don't mind, can I ask you a question? He said, please do. The gentleman told you that he had committed a wrong, an act of immorality, and he regrets it. You asked him if his mum was alive. How do you tie this whole thing up? He said, لِأَنِّي لَا أَعْلَمُ عَمَلًا فِي الْإِسْلَامِ أَقْرَبُ إِلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مِنْ بِرِّ الْوَالِدَةِ. Because I, Ibn Abbas, will tell you, in Islam, I don't know of any action that can instantly win the happiness of Allah and can instantly secure the happiness of Allah more than serving your own mother is. So I thought if his mum was alive, I would say, go serve your mum quickly. That would attract Allah's mercy upon you. I'm not suggesting to the young boys, kiss girls and then go serve your mother by any way, you know. In case you get the wrong edge of the stick here and say like, on the way do my wrong and then just come to my mum and like, okay, it's all done. No, please, don't read me wrong. Don't read me wrong. We're talking serious things. Another thing I have read in many books, and I have literally seen it, and I have conducted a survey in my humble travels. I have conducted a survey in my own mind, and I haven't found one against my survey. Whoever takes it upon himself amongst the siblings to be kind to his parents, and in particular his mum, he turns out to be the wealthiest of all the children. He turns out to be the wealthiest of all the children. Write it from me and take it from me. This is part of the perks. This is part of the benefits Allah will give you, my young boy. You serve your parents. My young sister, you serve your parents. And in particular your mum. حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. Your mum carried you pain upon pain. So there is a tale in the Quran of the previous nations where there was a murder that had taken place. A murder had taken place and people wanted to identify the murderer. وَإِذْ قَتَلْتُمْ نَفْسًا فَادَّارَأْتُمْ فِيهَا وَاللَّهُ مُخْرِجٌ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ فَقُلْنَا اضْرِبُوهُ بِبَعْضِهَا كَذَلِكَ يُحْيِي اللَّهُ الْمَوْتَى وَيُرِيكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. When you disputed regarding the death of an individual, and Allah was going to expose the murderer, وَاللَّهُ مُخْرِجٌ مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ, which you were concealing. So they came to Musa alayhi salam and they said, "Oh Musa, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if He could kindly bring it to the fore, inform us who the murderer is. We found a dead body, we really are curious to know who the murderer is." So Musa alayhi salatu was salam asked Allah. Allah said to them, slaughter a cow and take a piece of the dead cow, a flesh, and strike it on the dead man, and he will stand up, he will be revived, and he will say, so and so has killed me, and thereafter he will die again, and that would be the end. The Quran makes mention about the incident. Often I say, when I mention incidents, people are like, where did you? Unfortunately, we don't read the Quran. Unfortunately, what we read in is all other things. We read in about Miss World and Miss Africa and Miss India and Miss this. So in the interim, we miss in the real things. They came to Musa. Musa alayhi salam told him, this is what you must do. Musa's answer was very simple. Had they opted for any cow, slaughtered it, taken a piece of flesh, put it on the dead man, he would stand up. But unfortunately, they started getting, asking more specific questions. And accordingly, Allah then made it difficult. So, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوا بَقَرَةً قالوا أتتخذنا هزوا قال أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين قالوا ادع لنا ربك يبين لنا ما هي. Oh Musa, but you told us a cow. What color cow? قال إنه يقول إنها بقرة لا فارض ولا بكر. What age cow? So Musa alayhi salam said a cow of middle age. What color cow? Yellow in color. Oh, but there are a lot of cows that are middle age and there are a lot of cows that are yellow. You want to be more specific? You want to be more specific? Sometimes I say to the youngsters also, they're waiting for proposals and they have a list, man. Her height must be like this, her complexion must be like this, her temperament must be like, my word. Are you waiting for Mrs. Hur and my sister, are you waiting for Yusuf? It's not going to happen. I don't know here, but back home it happens often. When a wealthy boy pulls up, then the answers are all approved and everything is fine. And when he doesn't have a very good financial standing, then suddenly, we need to make istikhara and we need to make dua and find out what the answer from Allah is. But what happened to the istikhara when the man was wealthy and affluent? Disappeared into thin air? I'm afraid the priorities have changed. One girl intended getting married to a very prominent person. And her father had reservations. And he says, Dad, but you know what? He's a lawyer. And he has this qualification. And he has this expertise. And this is his degrees. And the father said, listen, my daughter, if he loves you, then all these abilities are in your favor. But the day things go wrong, all this goes against you. His legal muscle, his financial muscle, his social well-being, his recognition in community, his know-how, his contact with the hierarchy, all these things play out against you. So make a conscious decision what you want to do. Anyway, they asked what color. Musa alayhi salam said it must be yellow. لا ذلول تثير الأرض ولا تسقي الحرث مُسَلَّمَةٌ لَا شِيَةَ فِيهَا. And it must be a cow that's not used for farming purposes. Cutting a long story short, finally they arrive and they say, okay, right, now we've got satisfaction and we know what we're looking for. قَالُوا الْآنَ جِئْتَ بِالْحَقِّ. They now start their search. So they find a cow that's yellow, but then it's old. Or they find middle age, but then it's not yellow. And they going from farmer to farmer until they come in. This is mentioned in the footnotes of Tafsir Uthmani. This is mentioned in the footnotes of Tafsir Uthmani. This is where I read it and I'm giving you the reference. They finally find a young boy living on one remote farm, breaking even, living hand to mouth, just him and his mum, and he only had this one cow as livelihood, nothing else. So they come to him and they said, hey, my brother, you know what? We toured the world for this cow. He said, but I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to sell it. They said to him, you will demand the price and we will satisfy whatever you want. He said, are you ready for the deal? He said, yes, it's going to cost you an arm and couple of legs. Are you ready? He said, yes. He said, the weight of this animal equivalent in gold. The weight of this animal equivalent in gold, that is the price of this cow. They were desperate to find out the murderer, and they gave this boy so much gold equivalent to the weight of this cow. It's mentioned there in the footnotes of tafsir that Allah gave him this wealth instantly because of the kindness that he displayed to his mum. A boy who owned one cow became a cattle farmer overnight. Allah works in mysterious ways. Allah works in mysterious ways. I'm saying to you, my young boy, while you're earning and pursuing your academic degree, if you cannot spare some out of that for your mum, not that she needs it, but as a token, as an acknowledgement, then I'm afraid by your own actions, you are ridding your wealth of barakah and blessings. Jarullah Zamakhshari goes down in history as one of the giants in tafsir. Jarullah Zamakhshari goes down in history as one of the giants in tafsir. His tale is rather amazing, rather peculiar. As a little boy, he would take cotton and tie the leg of a bird to a tree. And when the bird would fly, obviously the leg would be detached and the bird would then lose a leg and become crippled. As a child, I mean, if we all go back in our childhood, perhaps we've done worse things. So each one knows, and if we ask our mothers, they'll tell us what we've done and how, naughty we have been. This boy, he came from school and he had his report. Now he failed in school, but he had to show his dad. He said, Dad, I brought my report, and by the way, I found your report as well. Dad, I brought my report, and by the way, I found from the archives, I've pulled out your report as well. So before you advocate holier than thou, and you tell me how great and how phenomenal and how amazing and how unique and how stunning and how great and how impressed your lecturer was, here's your report, Dad. So, yeah, just close the chapter and let's not discuss it. That's the reality. We can, put up an image, but we know what's happening. People often come home and they ask me to read on the date when a child is born. We know the practice of tahniq. So my children, they observe it from time to time, and now and then the one son plays with the other and he puts a date and he reads and he gives it to his brother. So I remember one time there was a particular brother who was very fond of me, and he used to, mashallah, listen to me, and he had a lot of attachment. So when his wife gave birth to the baby, he came straight from the clinic home and he said, Sheikh, you are going to read and do the tahniq for my baby and put something sweet in the mouth. So I said, okay, I'm not the pious person, but you are saying it, so to appease you, I will do it. May Allah make you as you think of me and forgive me for that which you know not about me. These were the du'as of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. May Allah forgive me. May Allah forgive me for that which you don't know about me, and make me as you think about me. Be it as it may, my little son, Talha, he's always very curious and everything. He says, but isn't it that the practice of putting something sweet in the mouth should be done by a pious person? So I'm like, yeah, but you're not pious. I said, yeah, my son, you are right. You are correct. I mean, I'm speechless. My life is exposed to you. And I often say, the only human in the annals of human history who could tell his wives, you can narrate any part of my intimate life, there is nothing there but guidance, was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can go public with my private life. You can discuss me in the public domain as a father. You can speak of my moments of anger. You can speak about my moments of joy. There's only guidance. Other than the Prophet of Allah, there is a flip side to every coin. There is a flip side to every coin. I have an image here, but back home my wife and children will tell you what my reality is, and each one else. It was the Prophet ﷺ who only had one color. There were no two colors. There were no two colors. Anyway, I was speaking about Jarullah Zamakhshari. So he used to put the twine and this cotton on the bird. And the mother used to tell him, my son, stop this, stop this. But you know, children persist and insist. And one day in a fit of the anger, my mother said, you know, you're breaking these birds' legs, may Allah break your leg. She obviously didn't mean it, but the repeated provocation of the child led her to the point of frustration. Don't give reason. Don't give reason. I've given a dedicated talk and I'm not going to digress in it. But what I say is today, the norm of our times have become, we provoke curses and request du'as. Your action is provoking me to curse you. And then you say, Sheikh, make a dua for me. Dua? What dua do I make for you? You're owing me money. You prolonging my payment. You do the things that anger me and then you request me for du'as. We provoke curses and request du'as. What has happened to our society? His mom said, may Allah just break your leg. Oh, those words don't go unheard. They went up and it bangs with the arsh and there it's accepted. And here this person becomes crippled. The mom regrets. And she says, oh Allah, in a fit of anger I said what I said. He provoked me. Now I am praying for him, Allah. And I am saying, oh Allah, you give him such a skill and give him such a knowledge and endow him so amazingly that because of that, people overlook his defect and the world respects and salutes him. He then goes down as one of the greatest giants in tafsir. He has written tafsir as Zamakhshari. If you ask the scholars, those who study tafsir, they will tell you it is a privilege and a pride to study this, and it is of such a phenomenal and excellent caliber that there are very few that truly can understand it. Allah then gave him this year. One side, the curse of his mother set him back. Then the dua of his mother took him forward. It took him to such heights. So again, let's bring things into perspective. We commenced and we spoke about the need of befriending our children. We spoke about taking our time and sitting with them. We focused on the youth and we said, understand your obligation to your parents. Understand your duty to your parents. Suffice to say that the Prophet ﷺ told Umar radiyallahu anhu, يَأْتِي عَلَيْكُمْ رَجُلٌ يَأْتِي عَلَيْكُمْ, a person will come to you by the name of Uwais ibn Amir al-Qarni, min Murad thumma min Qarn, who belongs to the Murad branch, the Qarn tribe. Kana bihi barasun, he suffered leprosy on his entire body. Illa mawdi'a dirham, Allah cured him from leprosy but the size of 1 dirham. Umar, when you meet him, you must ask him to make dua for your forgiveness. He is very obedient to his mother. His duas are accepted. Umar requests duas from him. The hadith of Muslim Sharif. And I must tell you something very amazing which I read about him. By Allah, I cried. The day I was researching this year and I came across this, I was gripped. And my general practice is that I got to share it immediately with someone. And I called my wife and I said, read this narration. And I was like bubbling. I couldn't imagine this here. And really the life the pious lead is a different life. Like you see many of the youth, they're physically here, but they dwell in another world. It's another world that they live in. Many that take intoxicants, they are on a high. They are on a different level. He had suffered leprosy on his entire body, and he made dua to Allah to cure him. Any sick person would make dua for cure. But his dua was amazing. He said, Allahumma da'li fi jasadi minhuma adhkuru bihi ni'matak. Oh my Allah, I beg you cure me. But I'm asking you, don't cure me in its entirety. Leave a trace of my old illness so I'm reminded of your bounty till the day I die. Oh my word. Oh my Allah. Your friends are your friends, my Allah. They are yours, my Allah. Oh my Allah, don't cure me completely. Have you ever heard of a man in poverty saying, Allah, alleviate my poverty, but let me suffer a bit so I am reminded of what you've given me? No, on the reverse. Allah gives him everything, and occasionally Allah tests him and he moans and he groans. Here is a conscious supplication. Oh Allah, cure me, but don't cure me completely. And Allah accepted his dua. So on his navel area, the illness remained. And he used to look at that every day, and then he used to refresh the bounty of Allah upon him. He used to say, remember your whole body was like this. Today it's just a navel. Oh Allah, oh Allah. We can speak about our humble beginnings, and we've evolved into empires. But how grateful are we to Allah? How grateful are we to Allah? Whenever people used to come from Yemen, Umar radiallahu anhu used to say, Afikum Uwais ibn Amir? Is Uwais amongst you? No. Hatta ata ala Uwaisin. One day a delegation came and he met Uwais. He said, are you the gentleman Uwais ibn Amir? Yes. Okay, I just need to do some checks to make sure I'm speaking to the right person. You belong to the Murad branch, the Qarn tribe. You suffered leprosy. You were cured. You had a mother. You served her diligently. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I am elated to meet you. My Nabi had left these words in my ears. Umar, meet him, hug him, and ask him to make dua for forgiveness. I beg you, my brother, a man like Umar? A man like Umar? The hadith of Muslim Sharif. Please, Uwais, make dua for me. And why did he enjoy this? Because he served his mother. So Uwais radiallahu anhu lifted his hands and prayed, oh Allah, forgive Umar. Umar is elated. Umar is ecstatic. He said, how can I give you an accolade or an acknowledgement? Or how can I elevate you? Can I write? Where are you heading to? He said, I'm going back to Kufa. That's my place of residence. Aktubu ila amil al-Kufa. Can I write to the governor of Kufa that, you know what, he should promote your profile, elevate your position, and see you with dignity and respect, so that he understands who you are, because I doubt people know who you are. He said, لَأَنْ أَكُونَ فِي غَبَرَاءِ النَّاسِ أَحَبُّ إِلَيَّ. Umar, by Allah, don't divulge my secret. I want to love simple. Nobody knows about my secret. My Allah is pleased with me, and I live my life and move on. You know, in Arabic, there's a very beautiful saying. It goes as follows. خَيْرٌ لِلْإِنسَانِ أَنْ يَكُونَ كَالسُّلَحْفَةِ فِي طَرِيقِ الْحَقِّ مِنْ أَنْ يَكُونَ غَزَالًا فِي طَرِيقِ الْخَطَئِ. It is better to be a tortoise on the correct road than a deer on the wrong road. You would rather move at a snail's pace, but you're doing the right thing. Quiet, secret, private, but the right thing. Then you big, loud, public, but you're doing the wrong thing. You're running like a deer on the wrong road. So these were few extracts from the lives of our pious predecessors that I hope would conscientize every young person towards the obligation of his parents. Now let's bring it to a point of dialogue, where we can sit down and speak, have heart-to-heart discussions, parent and child. As parents, we need to be accessible and open to listen to our children as well. The attitude that I know it all and I'm always correct, that's incorrect. And I hope the right people are hearing the right thing. I don't want the son to hear what his father has to do. Because that's, again, unfortunately, you know, my son, you heard that. But Dad, you heard the one after that. and then we are where we are. We are where we are. We don't make progress because I haven't yet decided this talk is for me. I still believe this talk is for him, this book is for him, this documentary is for that one, this CV is for this one. What do I need? Am I all done? The day I sit that I need it, then we'll be taking a step in the right direction. So as parents, we need to be accessible, A. And I'll support it, inshallah. B, at no point do we discommunicate our children regardless of the mistakes they make. In Islam, there's nothing like disowning your child. You get married to that girl, that's it. You walk out of this house, I don't know you, you don't know me. My son, I'm not happy what you're doing. But we have to keep communication open at all times. How do we support this? Sayyidina Yaqub alayhi salam's children plot the assassination of their brother Yusuf. Understand how gruesome the crime is. The crime is horrendous. They are plotting to kill their brother Yusuf because of the element of jealousy. They take him, they come with a sad tale. Dad, you know what? You had reservations that the wolf will devour him. وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِهِ بِدَمٍ كَذِبٍ. The Quran very eloquently paints the picture, and they bring the shirt of Yusuf stained with false blood. And they say, Dad, you said that the wolf will devour him. Your words prove to be true. The wolf has devoured Yusuf. And here is the shirt. Yaqub was a father which had maturity. And above being a father, he was a Nabi. So you can imagine his maturity. He said, my children, that was an intelligent wolf. It did not even tear the shirt of Yusuf. That was a very neat job done. That was a very, very neat job. They actually opened up the buttons, took it out, stained it, and gave it to you. And they realize that they have defaulted, and the cat is out of the bag, and the evil has been exposed. In Arabic, they say, "In kunta kadhuba fakun dhakura." If you're a liar, you have to be very intelligent because you have to cover all the leaks. All the leaks, you have to cover it. And you would slip at some point or the other. Now, they take Yusuf away. Yaqub alayhi salam realizes that this is a plotting of the children. بَلْ سَوَّلَتْ لَكُمْ أَنفُسُكُمْ أَمْرًا. This is your plotting, this is your conniving nature, this is your wicked nature. Anyway, I will persevere and Allah will decide. Years have lapsed. In this period, parent and son communication remains intact. To the extent, I don't want to go into the details, I just want you to understand my point that I am debating here. Because often I'm faced with a scenario where I receive a call, Sheikh, Imam, Maulana, would you come? My son is in the jail, my son is in the rehab, my son is, he's not in a sober state. Would you please come and assist? And you know what, I don't want him home, you can take him. And I'm like, brother, I understand your emotions. He remains your son. You cannot shirk the responsibility. You cannot come out of it as painful as it is. I don't want to trivialize your trauma, but we're not moving forward if we're disowning him. We have to have some communication. If not the father, one of the brothers, or the uncle, or a friend, but someone with whom we communicating, because often they move out of the houses and they don't want to stay here. And unfortunately, the youth go through that phase of insanity. As time moves on and Yusuf becomes the king there, and it still remains a secret, and he meets them and he says, do you have another brother? He said, yes, we have another brother. Where is he? He's back there with our dad. So Yusuf alayhi salam, they don't know they're speaking to their brother. They assume it to be the king. The next time you come for corn, you must bring that other brother back. I want to meet him. Now, I'm saying to you here, the brothers come back to the father to negotiate the release of Yusuf's twin brother or common brother. After having forsaken one, they can still come and ask for the other brother. If a son takes a car and he smashes it, what would the father say? Don't even dream of looking at these keys again in your life. Don't even dream. And I'm not saying, understand my point clearly. These are fine lines. I'm deducing my analogies from Quran. The communication of Yaqub with his children remained open. He rebuked them. قال لن أرسله معكم حتى تؤتون موثقا من الله لَتَأْتُنَّنِي بِهِ إِلَّا أَن يُحَاطَ بِكُمْ فَلَمَّا آتَوْهُ مَوْثِقَهُمْ قَالَ اللَّهُ عَلَى مَا نَقُولُ وَكِيلٌ. Must I send him again and then you will get rid of him like you did with his brother Yusuf? Give me a pledge and a promise and a commitment that you will return him. So communication has to be open. There must be somewhere where there's a platform where they can speak. Umar radiallahu anhu is the Khalifa, and he gives out an allowance to all, the soldiers of Islam. And he gives an allowance to his son Abdullah ibn Umar. And he gives an allowance of a much greater amount to Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma. So Abdullah ibn Umar says, Dad, I have an issue with your distribution. Now the great Umar, the strong Umar, but Umar allowed his sons. Sometimes children unfortunately read wrong. Dad, you gave him, you didn't give me. Obviously parents don't deliberately deny any child, because after all it's your children. Like my mom often says, I didn't go through any less pain in giving birth to you, so I'm going to love you more, and I went through more pain in giving birth to him, that I'm going to have less affection for him. It doesn't work that way. Allah has inherently put the equal love in every parent. It's just that some children win the happiness of their parents. May Allah make us those fortunate ones. So I'm saying communication was open. Abdullah ibn Umar comes to Umar and he says, Dad, give me an explanation, please. You are the Khalifa, you are in charge of the national treasury. You give Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma 5,000, and you give me a simple 1,000. How do you balance this out? On the reverse, nepotism might warrant you giving me more. Here it's the absolute other way around, you're giving me less. But Umar entertained the query of his son. My son, you make a point. I respect your concern. Let me tell you what's the motivation behind my distribution. هَلْ لَكَ جَدٌّ كَجَدِّهِمَا أَوْ أُمٌّ كَأُمِّهِمَا. You know what, my son? In fact, Abdullah ibn Umar, just to elucidate, Abdullah ibn Umar said that I was with the Prophet ﷺ in many campaigns when Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma were children playing on the streets of Medina. يَلْعَبَانِ فِي طُرُقَاتِ الْمَدِينَةِ. So they're much more junior to me. If you want to look at merit in terms of contribution, my contribution is far greater than them. And then my dad, you make this unfair and you discriminate between me. I need an explanation. Umar said, you are correct, my son. Sit down. I'll tell you why I did what I did. It's not you versus Hassan and Hussein. It's your mother versus Hassan's mother. That's been my eye. His mother is Fatima radiyallahu anha. And his maternal grandfather is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I looked at his ancestry and gave him what I gave him. I did not look at him and match him against you. Do you have a mother of the caliber of Fatima? I will give you the same. I mean, look at the vision of Umar. My point is not to go into that. My point of discussion is that when Abdullah ibn Umar, a man like Abdullah ibn Umar, such a great person, when he sensed discrimination, he came forward. Umar radiallahu anhu sat his son down and entertained the discussion. You make a valid point, my son, and let me put your curiosity to bed. Let me put your anxiety to rest. Let me tell you my view of analyzing the entire distribution. When Abdullah ibn Umar heard this, he says, no, Dad, that's fine. That's fine. You have satisfied what I was concerned about. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayhi. Another incident that appears in the Quran, Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salatu wassalam. In Surah Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this tale. It's a very, very amazing tale. Sulaiman alayhi salam was favored with vision as a young boy. One day there was a dispute between a farmer and a shepherd. A shepherd had left his flock, and that flock had pastured into the farm of someone, destroying the crops. This case was now presented before Dawud alayhi salam, that this man's negligence, he left his flock, his flock has pastured and destroyed all my crops. We need an Islamic verdict on the issue. How do you resolve it? Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam looked at the merits of the case. He made a conscious, analogies, studied the case, the ins, the outs, and everything. And he realized that the cost or the harm that was caused, to the crops was the equal value of the flock of sheep. So the value of the sheep, the flock, the entire flock in terms of monetary value, and the harms that were caused to the crops of the farmer of same value. So Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam told the shepherd that, you know what, it's your negligence, you're supposed to take care of your flock, you didn't take care, they have pastured and destroyed all the crops. So what you're going to have to do is now take your entire flock and give it to the farmer. And that's why we will balance it out, so it would basically atone and it would compensate for the harm that was caused. They accepted the verdict, the decision was made, the Nabi of the time pronounced the ruling. As they come out from the court of Dawood, Sulaiman alayhi salam was a young boy. The footnotes of Jalalain say he was 11 or 13. So Sulaiman alayhi salam said, where are you people coming from? They said, no, we just went to visit your dad. We asked your dad for an opinion. What's the matter if I'm not too inquisitive and if you don't mind me asking? Oh, basically my sheep was, left. And my sheep pastured in his farm, destroyed all his crops. What was my father's take on the issue? Your father said that the value of the sheep and the value of the crops is about the same. So I must take my sheep and I must give it to the farmer so it balances out. Sulaiman alayhi salam said, okay, I respect the view of my father. لو وليت أمركما لقضيت ما هو أرفق بالفريقين. But if my father had to ask my input, I would have given a verdict accommodating both parties. Now who are you talking of? The father was Dawood. Sometimes unfortunately I know it all. And when the son says that, go from here, you don't understand. And after a little while we got to eat humble pie. Okay, come here my son, can you help me here please? I'm not getting this phone right. Because in terms of technology, let's be honest, the youngsters are, light years ahead. They are light years ahead. And again, that doesn't make you superior to your father. You know one thing, you should be wise enough that I know these things, it's technology, it's innovating, it's evolving, so you know this today. So maybe in terms of gadgets and devices, the youngsters are a bit more, I'll tell you in my case, my sons are faster than me and better than me, so I rather do the polite thing and ask them from before, you know what, how do you do this and what do you do here? The news started getting around. Dawud alayhi salam said, Sulaiman, did I hear you have another opinion? My son, come, let's sit down and discuss it. Let's sit down and have a discussion. Dawud is a Nabi of Allah. He's guided by revelation. I'm saying we have to open the roads of communication. We have to have a bridge. We have to have a platform. So Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam said, بِحَقِّ الْأُبُوَّةِ وَالنُّبُوَّةِ. I ask you through the agency of fatherhood and the agency of prophethood. I'm your father, hence you're obligated to me. I'm your prophet, hence you're obligated to me. So there's a double agency via which I approach you. How would you resolve a scenario like this? He said, Dad, my idea is as follows. I would have told the farmer, the shepherd, you take your flock and you give it to the farmer momentarily for a period of time. يَنْتَفِعُ بِلَبَنِهَا وَصُوفِهَا وَنَسْلِهَا. And I will say to him, in this period of time, if the animals bear any offspring, then that offspring is yours. The goats that you milk, the goat is yours. The skin, if you skin the animals, the skin is yours. So you have something to keep you running and busy for the interim. I will say to the shepherd, now you work on the land of this farmer, cultivate it, irrigate it, plant again, grow the crops. When the crops come back to the point at which your flock had destroyed it, then you return his farm to the farmer and he will return the flock of sheep back to you. In the interim, he will have something to generate an income. That's the milk, that's the offspring, that's the wool, etc. of these animals. So his livelihood continues and you don't lose totally. Dawud alayhi salatu wasalam said, my son, officially, I retract my verdict. I retract my statement. And I hereby pronounce my verdict in harmony with the sentiments of my 11-year-old child. فَفَهَّمْنَاهَا سُلَيْمَانَ وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. I often say to my audiences wherever I travel, I wish you could appreciate the profoundness of the Arabic language and the Quran directly to understand and encapsulate what Allah has said, your hearts will burst in understanding what Allah has said. فَفَهَّمْنَاهَا سُلَيْمَانَ وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا وَدَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ إِذْ يَحْكُمَانِ فِي الْحَرْثِ إِذْ نَفَشَتْ فِيهِ غَنَمُ الْقَوْمِ. And narrate to them the tale of father and son, Dawood and Sulaiman, when they were pronouncing an opinion regarding a farm in which the flock had pastured. فَفَهَّمْنَاهَا سُلَيْمَانَ وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And we inspired the more correct opinion in the heart of Sulaiman, while Dawood was equally correct. وَكُلًّا آتَيْنَا حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. And we had favored both father and son with wisdom and knowledge. وَسَخَّرْنَا مَعَ دَاوُودَ الْجِبَالَ يُسَبِّحْنَ وَالطَّيْرَ وَكُنَّا فَاعِلِينَ. And then Allah speaks about the specific miracles of father and son. I'm saying dialogue, discussion, sit down. I can learn from you and you can learn from me. The Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba, there is a tree that resembles the believer. The hadith is in Bukhari. There is a tree that resembles the believer. Human nature, when people ask you a question, you think of the complex answer, you think of the simple answer. You think it's going to be a strange answer, it's going to be something unheard of, unusual. فَوَقَعَ النَّاسُ فِي شَجَرِ الْبَادِيَةِ. So people started running their thoughts in the jungles, in this tree, that tree. Oh, Prophet of Allah, is it this tree? No. Is it this tree? No. Nobody has the answer. And then the Prophet ﷺ says the answer is, it is a date palm. And the hadith elaborates, and the commentators have explored it. What are the similarities between a date palm and between a believer? I will digress into a long time, so I'm not going into this. Anyway, the gathering ends, and then Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu comes home. So as part of discussion, Abdullah ibn Umar tells his father, Dad, Umar, father and son having a discussion. You know, when the Prophet ﷺ asked that question, which tree resembles the believer? By Allah, I knew the answer. So Umar said, my son, not now. If you had to answer in front of the Prophet ﷺ, you know how proud I would have felt? You know how happy I would have felt? Then none of the prominent Sahaba knew it, and my son Abdullah knew it. The bond, that's a human feeling. But then look at the fabric of that society. Look at the fiber of that community. Abdullah ibn Umar said, Dad, I knew it, but I couldn't imagine mastering the courage to speak in the presence of Abu Bakr. I mean, you've instilled those values in me, Dad. When seniors are around, I don't speak. Oh my word, what a community. Today, if you look at the mouth, then he looks like the father, if not the grandfather. Jabbing away one way. My son, seniors, learned, boundaries, parameters, occasion, location. You want to accommodate this and then pronounce something and think? Or you just blurt in one way? Ibn Umar has the answer to the question. Our faith, its entire foundation is on the element of respect. And that's what makes the difference between our studies and others. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahmatullah alayhi, and his son, amazing dialogue. Abdullah ibn Zubair, what an amazing father and son. The hadith appears in Muslim Sharif. Abdullah ibn Zubair radiallahu anhu says, my dad called me on the eve of the battle of Jamal. لما كان يوم الجمل دعاني أبي. My dad called me on the eve. And I read this and I marvel at the maturity of the youth of that time. In the evening, my father called me and he said, my son, I'm going in the battle. And I have this intuition and this feeling, I won't make it back. I have this feeling I will be passing away tonight. From all my children, you are my eldest, and I hereby nominate you as the trustee of my estate. look at the maturity of the son. His father is telling him he won't come back. In a 10-minute discussion on the eve of the battle, the father can tell his son, sigh with relief, my son will take care and move on. You try and phone from overseas and say, oh, I didn't know where my phone was, sorry. He cannot be bothered. And listen, my son, وَإِنَّ مِنْ أَكْبَرِ هَمِّي لَدَيْنِي, my greatest worry are my debts. So please, as soon as I pass away, settle my debts. And then Abdullah ibn Zubair radiallahu anhu had 4 wives, he had multiple children, he had left behind an empire. And it's a long story how he had accumulated that wealth as well. I'm talking of the dialogue. So please, wind up my estate, execute it, and see that all the heirs are paid their rightful share. He said, okay, that's fine. And فَجَعَلَ يُوصِينِي بِدَيْنِهِ, he started harping on this, please, after you complete my burial, you lower me in the grave. My son, I'm asking you, I need this urgent from you. Take care of my debts. Take care of my debts. And by the way, if you have any issues in settling those debts, you can speak to my master. So for a moment, I was still trying to digest this here, and I said, Dad, وَمَنْ مَوْلَاكَ يَا أَبَتِي, who is your master? So Abdullah ibn Zubair said, my son, Allah. Who else? Allah is my master. So anyway, Abdullah ibn Zubair said, my father passed away. We then gave him ghusl, we gave him kafan, and I sat down and I started calculating. فَوَاللَّهِ مَا وَقَعْتُ فِي كُرْبَةٍ مِّن دَيْنِهِ إِلَّا قُلْتُ يَا مَوْلَى الزُّبَيْرِ اقْضِ عَنْهُ دَيْنَهُ. Every time I look, I see that I got to pay and I don't have enough money. I said, oh, the Lord of Zubair. My father said, I must turn to you. You make arrangements. The hadith is in Muslim Sharif. You make arrangements for the debts of my father. And divinely Allah will make arrangements, and I started paying off. My father told me, you turn to Allah, nobody else. Hakim ibn Hizam radiallahu anhu came. I worked out the liabilities were in excess of 2 million. What was the maturity of the son? In 5 minutes, the father could put it on his shoulders and move. Once upon a time, these were the sons of this ummah. These were the sons of this ummah. Today is like, okay, no, don't give him the house keys. You know, I'll lose it. Leave it. Okay, phone me when you come back. I'm reluctant. Can I give my son the key of the house? And ya Abdullah ibn Zubair, he said, my dad Zubair called me and he had a 5-minute discussion. And I understood. Those were the values on which I was raised. I understood my obligation. So anyway, I worked out the liability. It was in excess of 2 million. Hakim ibn Hizam came to me. And look at the fiber of that community. He said, what's the liabilities of your dad, if you don't mind me asking? He said, I deliberately played it down. We'll play it up to get help. I played it down because my dad said, I must ask Allah. I said, no, it's not too much. It's about 170,000. No, not too bad. We'll take care. Whereas it was in excess of 2 million. But his maturity. He said, my dad had given me warnings, you turn to Allah. And Hakim ibn Hizam was not being inquisitive. He meant good, he wanted to help. So he said, listen, all I'm asking how much your late father owes is you can take the full amount from me, payable when able. And if you cannot pay it, it's gone. I don't have any issue. I said, no, I appreciate it. Jazakallah, may Allah reward you. But you know what, I will take care of it. I will see to it and I will sort it out. The incident continues. He then winded up the estate. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him a lot of wealth. And amazingly, how he had accumulated wealth was with the campaigns that he participated in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he got the spoils of war. And the liabilities that he had incurred, for the record, in case you latch on to permissibility and you latch on to this here, that even Zubair radiallahu anhu had 2 million, so I'm not that bad. No, wait, hang on for a minute. I beg of your undivided attention. The liabilities that he incurred was, when people used to come give him a trust and say, keep this 50,000 for me. He used to say, my brother, I will not keep it as a trust. If I keep it as a trust and the money is stolen without negligence on my part, then you've lost your money. Let's turn the transaction, I take it as a loan, so your money is secured. Have you ever heard of humans like this? So somebody would come and say, keep this 100,000 as a trust, please. He said, no. If I keep it as a trust, then you have that the management of this company is not responsible in the event of theft or burglar or fire. Neither the company, nor the executive, nor the CEO will be held liable, or there will be no legal recourse. Please make note and park at your own risk, buy at your own risk, and wow, there's a long story there. Whenever anybody would bring money, he said, I don't want to take it as a trust. I will take it as a loan, so your money is secured. So he took the people's money and made it into a loan, gave it in charity, and that is how he incurred liabilities. His father passed away, he carried on. He took the responsibility, he sorted it out. And for the record, when he winded up the estate, his father's estate was 50 million. فَكَانَ جَمِيعُ مَالِهِ 50,000 و100,000 50 million, 200,000 dirhams. The hadith in Muslim Sharif. Look at again. Zubair radiallahu anhu and his wife Asma radiallahu anha, the daughter of Abu Bakr, the marriage had broken up. Abdullah ibn Zubair was amazing and respected both his parents. Understood his loyalty to his father. He was there for his dad on the evening. And then he lived on. Abdullah ibn Zubair lived on, and his mum also lived on. The father was separated and he passed away as well. On the occasion of the eve of the battle with Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, Abdullah ibn Zubair's mother at that time was 100 years of age. And it comes in the narrations, لَمْ يَغِبْ مِنْ عَقْلِهَا شَيْءٍ, but her intellect was totally preserved. And even her teeth were preserved. She was visually impaired. She had lost her sight. Other than that, her faculties were preserved. So Abdullah ibn Zubair comes and has a dialogue with his mum now. He comes to meet his mum on the evening. His mum embraces him and says, my son, what's happening? I feel this armor on your body, you're going, what's the reason? He said, أَخْشَى أَن يُمَثِّلُوا بِي. I fear that they will mutilate my body. I fear that they will mutilate my body after my death. So the mother said, الشاة المذبوحة لا يؤلمها السلخ. Sorry, is there a... الشاة المذبوحة لا يؤلمها السلخ. When an animal has been slaughtered and you skin it, then it doesn't feel any pain. Once you've died for the pleasure of Allah, why are you worried what would happen to you after that? He hugs his mother. And on that eve of that battle, he comes and he tells his mother, Mom, I want to break some news to you. I need to talk to you, something I've never told you. So the mother says, come and whisper in my ears. Today, generally, it's a rare thing that a son would say, I want to speak with you. And if he says, I want to speak with you, brace yourself for something unpleasant. My word. Averagely, the child is not going to come and tell you, I want to talk to you. And if he says, Dad, I need to talk to you, hell breaks loose. Your heart reaches a panic level because basically either he's involved in some money or illicit relation or his marriage is in shambles. Basically, you need to come and help put the ship back on water. That's the long and short of the problem. Mom, I need to talk to you. Said, what is it? كوني على ثقة أن ابنك لم يتعمد إتيان منكر قط وما عمل بفاحشة قط ولم يغدر في أمان قط ولم يكن شيء عنده آثر من رضا الله عز وجل ولا أقول ذلك تزكية لنفسي وإنما قلته لأدخل العزاء على قلبك. Mom, I doubt we're going to meet again, but I want to share with you something about my life. For the record, I want to tell you, you can cherish these as memories after I am gone. With the grace of Allah, I have never committed an act of immorality in my whole life. My mom, you can put your face up and walk in society. I have never dishonored the contract of a Muslim or a non-Muslim wherever I have gone. My mom, for the record, I have never deliberately disobeyed Allah. I have become a victim of circumstances and I have succumbed to pressure or whatever. But consciously, deliberately, I've never done this here. I'm only saying this to you now so that when I'm gone, these are good memories you can cherish about me. وَلَا أَقُولُ ذَلِكَ تَزْكِيَةً لِنَفْسِي وَإِنَّمَا قُلْتُهُ لِأُدْخِلَ الْعَزَاءَ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ. And I'm not saying this to trumpet myself. I'm not saying this to inflate my ego. I'm not saying this to elevate myself. I'm only saying this to bring happiness to your heart. The mom embraces the son. She's 100, she's blind. She says, Alhamdulillahi alladhi ja'alaka ala ma yuhibbu wa uhibbu. My son, I won't take any credit. I'm grateful to Allah. He's molded you, fashioned you in the manner that I wanted. And my hopes have come to fruition and have come to completion. Allah has made you like this. He then hugs his mother. What an emotional hug that must have been. The mum is 100. The chances are bleak that they will return. She's visually impaired. He kisses her hands. These were the very hands of his mother that had made food for the Prophet ﷺ on the night of Hijrat. These were not ordinary hands. It was Asma who made the food when the Prophet ﷺ took shelter in his cave. Dhatun nitaqain, she had no container. She took her clothing, cut it a portion, wrapped the food in that and gave it. And then he hugged his mother and they separated. And he said, Mom, as I leave, would you comfort me with some du'as in my favor? His mother lifted her hands. Can you imagine? For all I care, all the malaika were listening to that dua. For all I care, Allah's focus was on that dua. For all I care, perhaps the earth hasn't heard a dua like that. Allahumma arham birrahu bi abihi wa ummihi. Allahumma arham tula qiyamihi wa shiddata nahibihi fi sawadi al-layli wa nasu niyam. Allahumma arham birrahu bi abihi wa ummihi. Allahumma inni qad sallamtuhu li amrik wa raditu bima qadayta lahu fa athibni alayhi thawab as-sabirin. Oh my Allah, my son Abdullah is going. He's been a loyal son to his father. He's been a dutiful son to his mother. Allah reward him. I know how many nights I would come and he would be praying before you. How many days I would say eat and he would say I am fasting. Allah, it's been the hot days of Makkah. It's been the heat of Arabia. And my son has fasted for days on end. Oh Allah, reward him for the long nights he stood and spoke before you. Allah, I end my dua. I hand him over to your decree. And I'm satisfied with what you decide out of the outcome. I leave him with you and I join him with him. I join him in Jannah. Oh Allah. لم تغرب شمس ذلك اليوم إلا وقد كان عبد الله ibn Zubair قد لحق بجوار ربه. Before the sun could set, Abdullah had passed away. Hajjaj bin Yusuf, the notorious bloodshedder, had left the body hanging there. None could master the carriage to bring it down. Asma radiallahu anha inquired about the body of her son. She took someone and she went there, brought this body down. And she said, Allah will deal with the tyrant that has killed my son. And before 3 days could pass, Asma also passed away. And if you go to Jannatul Ma'ala in Makkah Mukarramah, you will be told, mother and son are sleeping in a common grave. Yes, indeed, my brother, and yes, indeed, my sister, much time has been taken. I hope and I pray to Allah that we reflect over what has been said. When Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, I will conclude on this, when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz came into position and he assumed the reign of the Khilafah, he told the butler at the door, just put a prohibition, nobody comes in, I need to sleep. Till Zohar, I'm rather exhausted. He barely issues the command and there's a knock on the door. He inquires, who is it? They said, it's your son Abdul Malik. He said, tell my son, I'm tired now and I'm really exhausted. Abdul Malik says, tell my dad I need to have an urgent word with him. I know he's the Khalifa, but I need to speak to him. So the son is allowed and is ushered in. 17-year-old Abdul Malik, the son of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. He walks in, says, Dad, Allah has given you the position. You have taken office. You are now in the driving seat. Don't you think you need to start cracking with the work that you have to do? There's so many people that have been abused and exploited and so many injustices that have been inherited. It's now your duty and you inherit all this here. You have to now balance it out and attend to this here and resolve all these issues. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullah said, you are right, my son. You are quite correct. But I'm tired now. We were engaged in the burial of the previous Khalifa. Let me just get my composure and I'm optimistic by Zohar. I will sit down and start, attending to the cases individually. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, his son said, Abdul Malik, oh my dad, can I tell you one thing to counter what you said? He said, please do tell me. Man laka ya abi bi an ta'isha ila dhuhri. My dad, you promised that you will get up at the time of Zohar and you will commence resolving all these cases. As a son, I ask you, and I think I'm morally obligated, and I'm putting you on the spotlight here, and sorry and forgive me, but I just want to know, What guarantee do you have that you will live till Zohar? Dad, you've inherited this, you are responsible, it's on your shoulders. You haven't made a start to it, you are prolonging, procrastinating till Zohar. How do you satisfy yourself that you would live till Zohar? فألهبت هذه الكلمة عزيمة عمر وأطارت النوم من بين عينيه. When he heard this, he stood up and he said, my son, you have taken tiredness away from my eyes till the day I die. My son, you have taken fatigue out of my eyes till the day I die. Your statement will haunt me as long as I am the Khalifa. He then hugs his son, embraces his son. There's an emotional breakdown. And he says, Alhamdulillah alladhi akhraja min sulbi man yu'inuni ala dini. My Allah, I am thankful to you. You gave me such children and such offspring that will guide me no sooner I deviate. May Allah make us such parents, make us such children, unite us, put muhabbat and affection. If any one of us have faltered with our parents, this is the night. Go back and build the bridges. As parents, if we have defaulted, let us take the bold step and unite. It is in our interest and it is in the teachings of Islam. Allah inspire us all. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم اجعل أولادنا برا تقيا وأنبتهم في الإسلام نباتا حسنا. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من كل شر ما استعاذك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. أنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.